a record room tour. Okay, I went from 2 very large rooms to deciding, hey, I'm just going to do this in my office now. And in the last 2 years since the flood, thanks to you, many of you, you have helped fill up these cabinets with the GoFundMe that you did and sending me records, and then I have overspent myself. The stereo equipment, I want to thank Brian and Greg that sent me that. So Relax, I know some people, there's Pioneer. Relax speakers are very nice. More shelves, box sets. I bought that painting in Puerto Rico. I've shown that before. You can see that. That's my chair. Bought that. That was a darn expensive chair. There's kind of blues and soundtracks are down here. Actually, over here, you can see that's kind of all jazz going down here. This is soul and funk, and everything else is conglomeration of rock and whatever. Back behind here, that's what I got to show yet. That's new stuff I haven't shown. That's actually what I got left in my office. I used to have a filing cabinet and everything in here, and now we're down to this. Those are classical albums in there. This is my world music, shall we say, your African, reggae, whatever else, from a different country. Actually, that's country western. Soundtracks are in there. I have my music books. I got a lot of, actually, if you were to go through my house, you'd see a lot of book cabinets. If I didn't collect music, I would be collecting books, first edition. But quite a few. There's the CDs right there. What I had left, some of my CD box sets survived the flood. Otherwise, I really don't buy CDs. People will send them to me, and that is fine. I have no problem with that. And the books I totally lost. I had a full bookshelf just of music books, but I brought back in a number of reference books. People have sent me some more books on music, and I still purchase them when I see them. So, yeah. This is a beautiful print by Andre Linda Lake. He sent me this for Christmas one year. Isn't that nice? And Tino, my buddy, he painted that picture there for me. One of my pictures fell down. Used to be there. And yeah, that's what we got. Just some of the box sets. Vito's one. Mazzy sent that to me. Zamrock. Okay. And of course, Cat. Yeah, that's it. That's in a nutshell. That's all there is to a very, very tight record room. This bookshelf will eventually probably come down, and I will put in another batch of cubes for records. And that bookshelf does have a home in my bedroom. My wife and I, we have a very large bedroom, and we have a sitting area, perfect for a bookshelf. It's a contest. It's kind of more than that. It's the lottery. And I did this last year, in which there's 26. There's actually more, and whoever wins, everyone else sends them a record album from whatever letter. I have the letter V. V for Vivaldi, Van Halen, Velvet Underground, Vapors. You get it, okay? So whoever wins, I will send them something with the letter V. It's a fun contest. It ends at the end of April, and I think anybody can enter this thing. Though I don't know if I want you to, because then my chances of winning this goes down significantly. But there was a ton of questions. This is by Bobby Z, Robert Zee, and I think is the channel, and he has done this. I think this is the last year he's doing this lottery, and it's a fun contest. And so he had 1 million questions. Basically, it's about record collecting and how we collect and our thoughts on record collection. Just start with it, and we'll just go into record collecting, why or what. And you know, my parents, maybe we had 20 record albums, maybe 25. They were all classical, a couple big band. That wasn't a big part. My whole family, we sang. All of us sang. All of us played instruments. Some were good at it. Some of us sucked at it because we didn't want to practice. But music really wasn't a part of, as far as records and all that. I was the only one in my family that bought records. My younger brother did to some extent because I got him to, but nobody else did would spend money on it. And so I really started in the mid, toward the around 73, 74. With paper out, I began to have disposable income, and I began buying 45s. The 45s expanded into Columbia Record Club, where I got 13 records for 1 penny. And then the world opened up to me. I've collected most of my life as a solo, by myself, not knowing other collectors. And so I've never really had many people in my life that I've talked to about music. I find a lot of it accidentally or from people that I have talked to, record store owners and that. So we'll just do a little bit of a journey here on some of the influential albums as I go. So it was in the mid-70s, and I began did Columbia Record Club, and a couple of the really important albums, and this is still one of the most important albums I've shown a number of times. Bargain Bin, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Not Fragile. This really was the first album I ever really listened to because it was played in our locker room for 2 years straight. Crank up Bachman Turner Overdrive, and it was just pure excitement. So it was an extremely meaningful album to me, and to this day it was really important. After the flood, this was one that I wanted to have back in my collection quickly. It was interesting when I started collecting. Again, I didn't know the group. So Columbia Record Club, it comes on, you have this spread of all these records you can choose from, and you're looking at it. And the Beatles weren't on there, by the way. And I'm just trying, I don't know any of these people because most of them were not on AM radio at that time in the 70s. I remember Hurricane Smith was on there, and I thought, God, I would really like to have that Hurricane Smith. I eventually did buy that album, and it kind of sucked, in all honesty. So what I did, though, so when I'm looking at this list, is I began buying greatest hits. Most of those are gone now, but this was one of them that, I brought back into the collection as I had to have Sly and the Family Stone. I had no idea who Sly and the Family Stone was, mid-70s. But it was greatest hits. I had Blood, Sweat, and Tears greatest hits. I had Seals and Crofts, Elton John, Jethro Tull. All of these were different greatest hits that I brought in. But it opened up a new world to me for each group as I listened to this stuff. Santana's greatest hits. That's what I bought. In fact, I bought every greatest hits that I could really find until I ran out on this Columbia form, and I didn't know what to do. And I bought Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, because I knew the song. And well, I didn't much care for the album, but oh well, that's the way. I didn't know what else to buy. So greatest hits package still to this day is an important part of my collecting because I like hits. I do. Yeah, it's, well, they made that song as part of an album. Well, that's great, and I'm happy, but I like the hits. And greatest hits is just, to me, it's just, I enjoy it so much. So that was one. The other part that really opened me up, Columbia House was an important part for me of my learning because they gave you a card every month. If you didn't send back the card, you got a record album. And for the most part, I never sent back a card because I'd forget about it, too lazy, procrastinate, whatever was the case. And I had all this stuff coming in. I had no idea. Here's one. But let me tell you, I'm so happy I didn't send in my card. It gave me a Jethro Tull, Minstrel in the Gallery, that blew me away. That was just an incredible album. But this one comes in, and it comes in and go, what is this? I thought, this is just, oh my God, what did I do? I didn't send in my card again. And I became a huge Parliament fan thanks to that. It was a big influence to me. And I stayed in Columbia House until they went under, until they finally said, this is it, we do it no more. And that was in the aughts. I never got out. I paid it every year. They would have sales. I remember by the 90s in December, they would always run the half price box set. Buy one box set, get another half price. And when you bought, you would get credits. And I would save up these credits. And when it came to that box set thing, I was all over it. And I know I've talked about that. I've talked about all this before. So for those of you who watched a long time, I apologize. For those new, you go, oh, well, that's something new. But this was, what a great album. One of those things that I learned about. By the mid-70s, Saturday Night Live came on. Saturday Night Live was putting on groups, and I would try to watch that. You had the Midnight Special. I learned about David Bowie. Actually, I had his greatest hits. That was in our greatest hits one. But I remember seeing him coming on one of his concerts, and that just kind of blew me away on what he did. But Saturday Night Live, this group came out, and they performed for Artists Only, was their first song on Saturday Night Live, and their second one was Take Me to the River. And at that exact moment, this became the most important band in my life. And it remained that way for quite a few years. I can't say it is anymore, but it's one of my probably top 5 favorite bands. But I had to go out and buy this album right away. I mean, it was just, I was so taken back by what I saw, the stage presence of this band. And for Artists Only, I'm painting again, I'm painting again. I mean, the hyperactivity of David Byrne up there, just looking, oh my God, he's going to have a seizure or something, was so important. But it brought me into another world. Now, I am entering the music of college, more college radio. AM radio for the first time is being pushed away, and I'm coming into something new. And, this is when I was going to college. And we had record stores because, in small town, we didn't have a record store. The Five and Dime might have a box where they would put some albums on there. Maybe you'd have 30, 40 albums. It was mostly 45s. Now, I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. There's a couple record stores, and Pickles was the one close to us. I remember going in, I saw this. Well, what's this? Look at that. Isn't that interesting? What a cool looking album. And I bought it, and it came at that time. There's the original vinyl. Save that from the flood. Actually, save that vinyl from the flood. And hey, did I save the Parliament one? Yep, Parliament didn't look out. Okay. So this, again, I put it on, and their version of Can't Get No Satisfaction was the most incredible thing I've ever heard. I was in shock by this, and just listen to this, and Jocko Homo, and Mongoloid, and again, a new world was opened up. And then the B-52s rolled in, and a lot of these other similar, new wave groups began coming out. In the early 80s, so I graduated in 81, got married in 82, I moved to Illinois. One of the assistant managers that I was working with, he came over, and he was into punk, and I knew nothing about punk. I had heard about the Sex Pistols, but it wasn't anything that I truly knew about. And so he gave me some albums to listen to, and this was one of them. And there's my original vinyl. That's still an original. I had to rebuy it. But this one, again, it took me, this was one of those records that took me into a new direction. It brought me into a whole new world of music. And the song TV Set it was just the most incredible thing. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, these buzzsaw guitars going on, the frantic energy of Lux Interior. It was just an incredibly influential album. It made me really look at music differently. I listened to The Clash, and I heard them for the first time. I go, my God, this is just some of the most amazing music. I played the album, the Sex Pistols album, and this is what got me going into punk. That started me with punk and made me from then on looking for punk. Now, I didn't know much about it. I was just kind of what my friend showed me, a stiff little finger, had to have that. Whatever I could find, I would pick up, but still not knowing them much. And so that's where, as I found, books like this came into play, Rolling Stone record guides. And, you know, at the time, these were my Bible. You know, since then, I've learned that a lot of their reviews were very biased. Some artists, they just decided they didn't like, and they just trashed them. And so, obviously, there's a lot of great albums that I didn't buy because my Bible said, piece of crap. And they might not have been crap, but we all hear it differently. That's not, you can't say they're wrong. That's what they thought. We all think differently. But this brought me into a lifelong buying of those. And the other thing is I began to subscribe to Rolling Stone magazine. And so those reviews in Rolling Stone magazine were very important to me. It was the first thing. Whenever I'd get that magazine, I would read the reviews. I had someone, a district manager of fashion, he worked district as a fashion area. He came in, and this was in Iowa. He introduced me to Q magazine. And Q became another hugely influential. It was very difficult to find. Well, when I was in Iowa, so we're back there, there was a small record store, and I got to know the people in there. And so they began, okay, I like punk and everything. They introduced me to this, the Velvet Underground. This became suddenly a turning stone in my life, a turning point, not turning. What the hell's a turn? Hey, that's a turning stone. Well, that's a neat trick, a turning point in my life. But I suddenly, email coming in. Okay, how about that? So, sorry. And so this album brought me into the Velvet Underground and into the other music that was developed similar to this, New York Dolls, Suicide, things like that, and was really important. And the other thing is, there's no denying it, in the 80s was MTV. MTV, you know, I'm in my 20s, this stuff's great that's coming out, all these videos. I mean, stuff like this, Ooskadoo. I mean, that's the next one. Oh, God. Human League, you know, Fascination. That video was just mind-boggling. The Safety Dance. I love that video. I didn't much care for Duran Duran or Cyndi Lauper. Later in life, I did, but not at that time. But MTV, highly influential in record buying. You would hear that one song and go buy their album, because I wasn't buying singles, really. You know, when I was in Minneapolis and I worked in Minneapolis, I began to, you know, Ooskadoo. Now, you can also say Rolling Stone helped introduce me to Ooskadoo, as they talked about them and the replacements. And at that time, Prince was taking off, and there's this whole scene. And so I began to learn more of that. By the mid-80s, Beastie Boys came out, introduces up to the world of rap. MTV starts, they grab rap, and they find, okay, this is important. The one album, though, that really made a difference, and it's through a record review, was Public Enemy. There's my original I bought when that came out. This album, and, you know, the first couple albums blew my mind, and to this day it still does. They're both so incredibly powerful and good and demand your attention. I couldn't get enough of them, and I just loved it. And, you know, it wasn't even about the politics of what they were saying. It was just the noise, that what they were creating. The music was the most amazing, dense, hard rocking stuff. Beautiful music. Another, you know, I talked about earlier, this person, this district manager, this fashion district manager, he introduced me to Q magazine. He also introduced me into the Beavis Front. And this sent me on a whole nother into the world of psych. And it was more the newer psych that I got into. I didn't know much about it, and I still don't know much about it, but it got me interested. And not really into the, you know, I'm still not heavily into the old stuff. It is the newer things that do appeal to me more. You know, my record really listening and buying started, you know, about 73, 74. That's where my roots of music really began. I mean, I listened to it. I mean, I loved music from a very little child. But this is where it really grabbed my attention. And so even to this day, the 60s, there's some great albums, but it's not as important to me as albums from the later 70s and into the 80s, especially when you think of some of the punk and stuff. That, to me, is really the essence of what I am about when it comes to buying records. Now, with the VC, things have changed. Bill Young, my buddy here in town, he introduced me like here, what do I even want to even try to say his name on the air? Kyoko Moyu. You learn from others, but we'll talk a little bit about the VC. By the late 80s, and then into the aughts, probably into the teens, I got into College Music Journal. What makes this significant is every month College Music Journal gave you a sampler CD. That sampler CD was all this new music coming out. This became one of the most important things to me. I would put that on and I would listen. I'd be writing down, this is what I want to buy, this is what I want to buy, and I would go out. Now we're in the world of CDs. So most of this stuff was on CD, and I don't have anymore. I had thousands of CDs, and College Music Journal was a big part of this. Now, and then I began, you find all these other magazines. The UK produces 1 trillion music magazines, and a lot of them had free CDs. Now it's like downloads and stuff. But all of that, you listen, you go, all right, because you can read a review, but if you hear it, it's what connects you. That review may say, this is the greatest album in the whole wide world, and you buy it and you go, what the hell are they talking about? But when you hear something, that is why I put samples on when I do my videos, because a sample, your ears, your brain goes, wait a second, I get that one, I'm connected. All that blah, 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 blah he was saying, or what you read, you hear it and you go, my God, I love it. I love it. And so that is how I bought so much of my music, through these samples. Part of it came in, and I began now listening to African music, because College Music Journal was putting on African music. Tanarwin was on there, and a variety of other ones, and not just College Music Journal, but these UK publications. And, one of them was this, and it was just a reissue at that time coming out, but talked about Fela Kuti, and didn't know much about him. I can now tell you I have dozens of his albums. I have some originals. Sadly, the covers are now gone, but let me tell you, I saved that vinyl. But it became such an important part, and African music really is a huge love of mine. Not all African music. I'm said primarily 70s because of the groove, but the Sahara Blues that's coming out now is the most incredible stuff in ages coming out of Africa, as far as I'm concerned, because of the groove, because of the hypnotic trance it'll put you in with the percussion. Incredible stuff. But a new journey was started. Again, by reading these music journals and listening to these samples, it started me. So, I'm still, now, by the late aughts, I'm starting to get back into vinyl. I'm finding, hey, there's some vinyl out there finally. I find some. And I've been going to used record stores, buying some vinyl, but primarily CDs. But now I'm starting to get back into it and, getting more and more with it. Well, then 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago, I, my buddy Bill Young, as I mentioned, put out a video on YouTube for the vinyl community, which I knew nothing about. And he posted on Facebook, hey, I did a video. And I watched this and I go, that's what I want to do. That's exactly, I want to talk to people about music because it's passion. It's what excites me. And it is. And, I have this, you just feel it inside when you talk about music, this pure excitement, because it's what makes you happy. And so I started a channel, and I mean, I just right away, I just go, okay. I had to call up one of my kids and go, well, what do I do? How do I do this YouTube? What's this YouTube thing? That was 4 years ago, folks. And they told me, and I did it, and it's been going on ever since. So, and because of YouTube, the interesting thing is you get to learn, so many of the people that watch are band. They have bands. They're artists. They're different things. Like Belle Moray. I never would have heard about Belle Moray, but Michael Moore was on, and he began talking about it, and I listened and go, wow, this is really incredible. I mean, in fact, I didn't know he even was in charge of a group until he sent me an album, and his name was on. I go, God, that guy, wow, he's a musician. That's what a lot of you, and then you say, hey, what you're doing, and some have sent me some records, and it's just been incredible. So it's kind of the guide that I've had. The other important part, as I talked about those magazines, was the box sets that would come out, compilation box sets, and Rhino was the most important one, with Nuggets, Children of Nuggets, Thanks, the 70s punk. This one here, Left of the Dial, where they really went through these college rock of the 80s and into the 90s. This was where my love became and is to this day. I still have that passion. I mean, you had other ones here. I mean, you got the Have a Nice Day in the 80s, and I haven't brought back the 90s one yet. These had a lot of those hit singles that were just fine. These are the ones that had the albums that I needed to find and still need to find, and I still use these as a huge reference guide as I look, because I can hear the music. So that's kind of how my journey goes fairly quickly, though not quick enough, obviously. It's a passion, and that's why anybody's watching this, it. You have that passion, you have that feel for the music. So my new record room, yeah, it's a lot smaller. That's okay. I'm not a completist. I used to be always trying to do that when I had the room, but now I'm at this age where I just want good music. I want the stuff that I like. It isn't like, well, this artist did 10 albums, I'm going to get them. 2 of them were great. The other ones were so-so, but I just want those albums. No, it's not to go, I don't go into a record store anymore and say, well, those are really good prices, I'm just going to buy these. Not going to happen to me. I do blind buy. I blind buy a ton. How do I decide on what to blind buy? Well, here, I see something like this. What a cool looking cover. Gosh darn, that's cool looking. I better try that. Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason. Really, when I come to blind buy, it's all pure feel. I think that looks good. I'll try it. If I can get a sample of something, fantastic. But if I can't, it's the way it is. So that still happens. But it is a lot of the music that I've spent money on is bringing things back that I did have in my collection that I really love, that bring a smile upon my face. And so you can't bring it all back, and you have to pick and choose. Prices have gone up. It's not easy to rebuild that collection, as many of you know who sold your albums for CDs, and I get why. I never did that, but I understand it. So it's a tougher time now to do it. So you need to pick and choose. And now with all this audiophile stuff, it's great. And I was buying more of it, but I've slowed way down because the prices are getting up there more and more. I could still afford it, but I could get something else, maybe 2 other albums that I want even more. Pop stuff, not as much, but I try to keep an ear out for it. That I rely upon the vinyl community. The vinyl community shows me the newest stuff that's coming out. They help me see things and to hear things that I might miss. So I do find that extremely important. So that's what I have for this. I see the mailman's coming now out through I'm on the top floor of my house, and they may have records for me today, and I can only hope and pray for that. So, Bobby Z, that answers some of the questions, I think. For those of you that stuck around for this, hey, thank you so much. Obviously, you need something else to do, okay? And hold on. Oh, the mailman. Yes, they went by the mailbox to park in the driveway. They're bringing me new records. So, I got to go greet the mailman. Hey, everyone, thanks for watching. Bye.